Which one's the link?
Yeah.
Share.
Because I don't.
Oh, share.
He has said I don't think
I
you
just
guys have
put
done
it like
since
this
you
so that
started
it
going.
now share.
Well, maybe since we've had different pastors there,
Oh,
maybe it got lost in the shuffle.
Next
I didn't
slide.
think about it, but yeah, you're probably.
You might want to look into that.
Yeah.
You know Brother Bhakt Singh, sir? Brother Bhakt Singh.
There we go.
Hello.
My
Hello.
son Harvey.
Oh, nice.
Hello.
My
Hello.
son Harvey.
Oh, nice to meet you. What was his name again?
Here.
Anthony?
Anthony. Here. Okay. Yeah, wherever you
Write that down or I'll forget.
Harvey. Harvey, this is Kathy. Nice to meet you.
Likewise.
And his friends.
Hi, Princey.
Nice
to meet you.
And I'm Josiah.
Yeah.
Is it working?
Brother,
Okay. And then is this yours?
Ah, yeah.
Okay.
Adi slept.
Oh.
According to him last night, he slept late.
Oh, okay.
Did he have to work? Yeah.
Princey?
So I sent the lyrics in the group chat for I Surrender All.
You gotta sing loud. Required.
Let's go ahead and begin.
Trust in His presence freely.
okay, we still got this
Are we
words.
singing one more?
No, that
You wanna
one.
sing another one? That's a good idea.
What song do you guys want to sing?
Hmm.
We can sing Amazing Grace. That's an easy one. I think everyone knows
Yeah.
that
Can you
one.
sing that one?
Yeah.
Yeah. Let me look that up right quick.
Yeah, that's.
Yeah, we sounded good.
Yeah, I think so. Okay, let me find.
The neighbors can hear us over there.
Good, they should.
That's right.
Maybe it's going on.
Alright, the lyrics are sending. Hold on. Alright, they sent.
There they come.
Alright, everyone have them pulled up? Let's start.
Oh, that's introduction. Sing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now I'm found. Was blind, but now I see. 'Twas grace that taught my heart to fear, and grace my tears relieved. How precious did that grace appear the hour I first believed. The Lord hath promised good to me. His word my hope secures. He will my shield and portion be, as long as life endures. When we've been there 10,000 years, bright shining as the sun, we know God's face to sing God's praise. And when we first begun. All right. We ready to look at John chapter 2? And I have a extra New Testament if someone needs it, big print. You can keep that if you want. All right, so John chapter 2. We're going to be looking at the first 11 verses tonight, and then we'll let John pick it back up in the middle of the chapter next week. So what I'll do is, if it's okay, I'll read through it, and then we'll go back and kind of look at what we can learn from it. How about that? Okay? Everybody have it? John chapter 2, verse 1. It says, on the third day, a wedding took place at Cana in Galilee. Jesus' mother was there, and Jesus and his disciples had also been invited to the wedding. When the wine was gone, Jesus' mother said to him, "They have no more wine." "Woman, why do you involve me?" Jesus replied. "My hour has not yet come." His mother said to the servants, "Do whatever he tells you." Nearby stood 6 stone water jars, the kind used by the Jews for ceremonial washing, each holding from 20 to 30 gallons. Jesus said to the servants, "Fill the jars with water." So they filled them to the brim. Then he told them, "Now draw some out and take it to the master of the banquet." They did so, and the master of the banquet tasted the water that had been turned into wine. He did not realize where it had come from, though the servants who had drawn the water knew. Then he called the bridegroom aside and said, "Everyone bring out the choice wine first, and then the cheaper wine after the guests had too much to drink. But you have saved the best till now." What Jesus did here in Cana of Galilee was the first of the signs through which he revealed his glory, and his disciples believed in him. Okay, so what we have here is Jesus in the early stages of his ministry. He hasn't even called all his disciples yet. But earlier in that chapter, he's called Philip and Nathaniel. And as it says in verse 1 there, this was the third day. So he's just getting started with his ministry. And he gets invited, him and his mother and his disciples get invited to a wedding. And this is the first miracle that Jesus performed. And as we know, he did other miracles. He raised Lazarus from the dead. He healed some people. But this being his first miracle, it wasn't anything to do with sickness or death. It was something that was dealing with someone's need. And it was maybe a small need, but it just goes to show us that Jesus is interested in every aspect of our life. Here, they were having a wedding, they're having a reception, and they were running out of wine. And Jesus' mother come to him and says that they've run out of wine. And then if we look in verse 4, Jesus' response was, "Woman, why do you involve me?" Jesus replied, "My hour has not yet come." See, Jesus was just getting started in his ministry here. He's saying his hour had not yet come. The purpose for him and his ministry was just getting started. And we'll quick skip, if you don't mind. Let's look at John. If you have your Bible handy, look at John chapter 20, because I want us to see why Jesus is doing miracles, starting with this one. And throughout John, we're going to see more of his miracles. But if we look at John chapter 20, verse 30 and 31. Does someone want to read that one for us?
John 20.
John 20, verses 30 and 31.
And many other signs truly did Jesus in the presence of his disciples, which were not written in this book. But these were written that ye may believe that Jesus is the Christ, the Son of God, and that believing ye might have life through his name.
Okay, so here John's saying that these signs, these miracles were done so that people would believe in Jesus, and that by believing you may have life in his name. So the purpose of this miracle and all the other miracles that Jesus would do was for people to believe in him, to see the power that he had. Because people, they weren't understanding how he could come and be the Messiah and forgive sin. So to show his power, he was going to perform some miracles and use those miracles for people to believe in him. And that's what it says in verse 11. It said, after he revealed his glory through this miracle, his disciples believed in him. So he's, you want to call it, I guess, getting credibility with his disciples, that he is who he says he is. And this is just, like I said, this is maybe one of the smaller miracles, but he's starting to build the belief in the disciples that they have in him. And this is the point he's starting at. Okay, and it says that they believed in because of what he did here. Okay? And as I said, this shows that he's interested in our day-to-day activities. Sometimes we think maybe, we're not important enough for Jesus to be interested in what we're doing day in and day out. Some days what we do might be a little mundane. It might seem like we're not accomplishing anything, but he's interested in everything that we do. It's not just when we're at church. It's not just when we're at Bible study. He's interested in what we do day to day. He'll put people in our path that we're supposed to witness to, that we're supposed to reach, maybe help. And that's he's equipped us to do those things. Okay? But getting back to this miracle, and just kind of goes along with what I'm talking about. If you notice here in this story, the bride and the groom's names were never provided because it wasn't about them. This miracle, this story is not about the bride and the groom. It's about Jesus and the miracle that he's doing. So, and then, of course, he changed the water into wine. And I've heard from different pastors, and I'm not sure, but I understand this is sort of a side note, but it probably was an intoxicating type of wine. I'm not sure if Jesus would whip up some wine and have it intoxicating. Doesn't make sense. He's not gonna. So that's just a little side note that I've learned in studying this. And then let's see. And the 6 water pots, let's talk about them for a few minutes. It said, Jesus said in verse 6, it said, nearby stood 6 stone water jars, the kind used by the Jews for ceremonial washing, each holding from 20 to 30 gallons. Jesus said to the servants, fill the jars with water, so they filled them to the brim. Okay, now understand about these 6 water jars. The water in these jars were used, the Jews used them to clean. By their rules, they had to wash 9 times. They would wash 9 times and using this ceremonial water to become clean, ready to eat what they were going to be eating. And one of the things Jesus is saying here is that that's the ceremonial part of religion. But he's come not to fulfill the ceremonial part, but to fill. In fact, later on, the woman at the well, he's going to call himself living water. See, this is like ceremonial water. And that's what the Jews had up until this point. But he's trying to show them that, okay, you have your ceremonial type religion, but I'm different. I'm living water. So that's what he's starting to show them here. And like I said, he's just getting started in his ministry. So he's showing his disciples and everyone that was there the difference that he is going to be. And let's see, talk about living water. That's recorded in John chapter 4, verse 10. Talking to the Samaritan woman at the well. And in that he says, Jesus answered her, if you knew the gift of God and who it is that asks you for a drink, you would have asked him, and he would have given you living water. See, Jesus is providing living water, not the water that the Jews are used to, that they're used to using in their ceremonies. Okay? Any questions up till now? Okay, and then let's go back to verse 5. And it says, his mother said to the servants, do whatever he tells you. And of course, that's probably some of the best advice that any of us could get, is do what Jesus tells us to do. And in fact, again, I'm skipping around here a little bit, but in the book of Luke, chapter 6, verses 46 and 47. Talking about this, Jesus said, why do you call me Lord, Lord, and do not do what I say? As for everyone who comes to me and hears my words and puts them into practice, I will show you what they are like. They are like a man building a house who dug down deep and laid the foundation on a rock. When a flood came, the torrent struck that house but could not shake it because it was well built. And then it goes on to talk about the man that didn't. But what Jesus is saying here, and what his mother's saying about Jesus was, when Jesus tells you to do something, do it. And that is still true today. if you feel like Jesus told y'all to have a Bible study, and he did it, see, that's what we're talking about here. When Jesus tells you to do something, do it, and he'll bless you for it. But sometimes Jesus tells us to do things, and we let other things kind of get in the way. You know, some of our other activities, and maybe that's why we hadn't had a Bible study before y'all started one, because some of us were letting other things get in the way. But I appreciate y'all getting it started. Yeah, it's been a good study. Okay? So let's see, skipping around here in John chapter 2. Let's talk about verse 9. Okay, we'll go back to start with verse 8. He said, then he told them, now draw some out and take it to the master of the banquet. So let's make sure we realize here, he said first to fill the stone water jars with water and fill them to the brim. Okay, now he's saying after that's done, now they're going to draw some water out and take it to the master of the banquet. So this isn't the water that went into the stone jars. This is, those jars have been filled, and now he's drawing more water out. So the ceremonial water has already been drawn. Now he's having his servants draw this water out. He said, and they did so, and the master of the banquet tasted the water that had been turned into wine. He did not realize where it had come from, though the servants who had drawn the water knew. Okay, and here the point is that we want to understand is when Jesus does miracles, as we can see, like if we think about Lazarus being raised from the dead, Jesus used some of the people to move the stone out of the way. He could have just said, you know, stone be moved. But he wants to get us involved in his work. He wants to get us involved in his miracles. And just like he did here, I mean, he had him fill up the stone pots and he had him draw the water. He could have done all that himself. But he wants us to be involved in his work. Okay. And as it says here, the servants knew who had drawn the water. And here we're learning that the master didn't know where the water had come from, the water that was turned into wine, but the servants knew. See, God reveals stuff to us for us to do that the world doesn't understand, doesn't realize what we're doing, but you know, we're being led by God. It doesn't make sense to them. Just like here, the master didn't understand where this wine came from. It couldn't, but the servants knew because they were the ones Jesus was using. And it's just like us. When Jesus has us doing work, reaching people, other people may not understand. But we know. And we know where the power's coming from. See, they don't realize, the world doesn't realize where we get our power from. To go out and to reach others, to do what he's called us to do. And just one more jump in the book of John, John chapter 15. And we're going to get to all these verses eventually as we study the rest of the book. But it just kind of goes along with what we're talking about. John chapter 15, verse 15. It says, I no longer call you servants because a servant does not know his master's business. Instead, I have called you friends. For everything that I learned from my Father, I have made known to you. So see, Jesus, here, the individuals they're being called servants. But he calls us friends because he doesn't keep anything from us. You know, he's not telling us to do something and then not giving us the ability to do it. So that's why he considers us friends and not servants. Because like it says, for everything that I learned from my Father, I have made known to you. So everything that Jesus has learned from the Father, he's made available to us. He's not holding anything back. It's all recorded for us right here. It's our responsibility to learn it, to know it, and to live it, right? Okay. Let's see. Back to John 2. Verse 11. Skip there for a second. It says, what Jesus did here in Cana of Galilee was the first of the signs through which he revealed his glory, and his disciples believed in him. Okay. I'm going to go back to Luke. You don't have to turn there if you don't want to, but I'm going to read something from Luke chapter 5 here. It's talking about when Jesus encountered Peter fishing in Luke chapter 5. And as we know the story, Peter was fishing with some others, and they had fished all night. And in the morning, Jesus appeared, and overnight, Peter and his group didn't catch any fish. But as it says here, I'll start with verse 5. Let's see, it says, when he finished speaking, he said to Simon, put out into deep water and let down the nets for a catch. Simon answered, Master, we've worked hard all night and haven't caught anything, but because you say so, I will let down the nets. When they had done so, they caught such a large number of fish that the nets began to break. So they signaled their partners in the other boat to come and help them. And they came and filled both boats so full that they began to sink. When Simon Peter saw this, he fell at Jesus' knees and said, Go away from me, Lord, I am a sinful man. For he and all his companions were astonished at the catch of fish they had taken. And so were James and John, the sons of Zebedee, Simon's partners. And then Jesus said to Simon, Don't be afraid. From now on you will fish for people. So they pulled their boats up on shore, left everything, and followed him. Okay, so now in this story, they haven't caught fish all night. Jesus tells them to put out into the deep water. Now Peter Simon as he's called here, was an experienced fisherman. He probably was thinking, we've done all this all night, we haven't caught anything. But as it says here, it says, but because you say so, I will let down the nets. What do you think would have happened if you said, we've been fishing all night, there's no use doing that? Wouldn't have caught many fish, wouldn't have caught any fish. And see, sometimes we say that. Sometimes the Lord wants us to do something. Maybe to start up a Bible study. If you would have said, nah, that's, the Lord told you to start up a Bible study, and y'all said, no, that's all right. We're busy doing other things. You wouldn't have caught the fish, And so what I'm saying is it's up to us. We have to make that choice. When God tells us to do something, like he told Peter here, it's up to us to do it. And then we'll see the results. If we don't do it, we don't see the results. And unfortunately, that's happening a lot. That's why, some of the reason why church attendance is shrinking different places. People aren't out there trying to catch fish, or in this case, humans. We're not doing what the Lord calls us to do. Okay? And I apologize for jumping around here, but there's just so many examples that God gives us in his word of what he's talking about. Okay. Let's see. So as it says here in verse 11, he did this to reveal his glory. So he's doing these miracles, everything that he did. He's not doing it just to do it. He's doing it to show people who he is, the power that he has. Because he's going to tell them very shortly that he forgives sin. People are going to come to him, like Mary Magdalene and others, terrible in sin, but he is going to change their course. But here he's beginning to show his power. He's not doing it just to show off. He's doing it so people understand who he is. Okay? And then, and I can read this one real quick. In Romans chapter 12, it says in verse 2, do not conform to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Then you will be able to test and approve what God's will is, his good, pleasing, and perfect will. So what this whole miracle is about is it's showing that Jesus is in the transformation business. He's taking this water and he's transforming it into wine. He has taken us and he's taken his believers and taken out. I mentioned Mary Magdalene, but if you look back even at his disciples, I mean, John, his disciple John, before he knew Jesus, he had a terrible temper. He was angry, real angry. Jesus took him though and transformed him, and then he was full of love. If we read about all that he did, he was totally transformed, totally changed. Peter, he would shoot off at the mouth. His faith would come and go, but Jesus transformed him. He took him and took him from that person, and then we see in Acts the way he was boldly proclaiming the word. I mean, Peter, John, all his disciples didn't start out the way they finished, and that's the same for us. We're not to finish the way we started out. Jesus wants to take us and transform us, and to change us from the person that we were when we came to him to the person that we are today, and the person that we're going to be the day we leave this earth and go to be with him. It's a transformation process. We shouldn't be staying the same. But now, of course, we have Satan tugging at us, and he'll tell us, we're not doing that, or do this, it'll be more fun. And so there's always that battle, that spiritual battle going on. But Jesus wants to transform us and make us into the person that he wants us to be. And that's what he's doing here with another reason he's changing this into a wine is he's showing that he can be that transformative person. Let's see. Already talking about Mary Magdalene. She was demon possessed before she met Jesus, and Jesus transformed her. And as we talked about with the Easter study, she was there with Jesus every step of the way, really, to the cross and afterwards, after he was resurrected. These weren't people that were super Christians beforehand, and they were just doing the same thing they had been doing. Jesus transformed each one of them. Okay. I want y'all to hear a story about that if I can find it. Y'all listen to this couple minutes here. It talks about a person that was transformed and how not only changed him, but it changed his family and everyone that knew him. We hope you can hear this.
I heard of a man who was giving a testimony at a Salvation Army meeting. And it was one of those street meetings where they had the Salvation band. This man was testifying in an open-air crowd. There was a heckler who said, "Why don't you shut up and sit down? You're just breathing." That heckler felt a little girl pulling at his coattail and said, "Sir, may I speak to you? That man who's talking up there is my daddy. Daddy used to be a drunkard. He used to spend all of the money that he made on whiskey. My mother was very sad and would cry most of the time. As a matter of fact, sometimes when my daddy would come home, my daddy would hit my mother and said, I didn't have shoes to wear. I didn't have a nice dress to wear to school. She said, look at these shoes. You see this pretty dress? My daddy bought this for me. And said, you see my mother? She's the one over there with the bright smile on her face. That's my mother. My mother's happy now. She said, my mother sings even when she's doing the ironing. And then that little girl said, mister, if my daddy is drinking, please don't wake him up. Now, I like that story because it illustrates for me so richly and so fully what I'm talking about, that the significance of this miracle is that Jesus is the transformer, the one.
Okay. Just one example of Jesus taking a drunkard and changing him, transforming him into the person that he wanted him to be. Not only did it change him, but it changed his wife, it changed his child, and there's no telling what kind of difference he's making with his testimony. See, Jesus doesn't want us to stay where we're at. He wants us to learn his word, learn what he wants us to do. If you think Jesus is telling you something and it's not in here, I'd say perhaps maybe he's telling you to fudge on paperwork, or change some figures on paperwork. Jesus ain't gonna tell you to do that. So if he's talking to you, or if it's Satan trying to get you to do something. If it's in his word and you hear that voice, that's Jesus. If it's not in his word, if it's something contrary to his word, that's not Jesus talking to you. But people, they'll do things and they'll say, Jesus, I prayed about it. Jesus told me to do it. Like you get some people, maybe they'll say, Jesus told me to kill this person. Jesus isn't going to tell you that. He's not going to tell you that. So they were hearing some other voices in their head. Am I making sense? Let's go and then we'll finish with this if it's all right. But let's see, in verse 9, the master of the banquet, it says, at the end of verse 9 going into 10, he says, then he, which would be the master of the banquet, called the bridegroom aside and said, everyone brings out the choice wine first, and then the cheaper wine after the guests have had too much to drink. But you have saved the best until now. See, here again, this is what Jesus does for his people. The best for us is going to be last. When we get to heaven, that's going to be the best. See, Satan right now, he tries to, go do this, it'll be fun, it'll be good. And then you might have the fun, but then you have the consequences afterwards. But Jesus is saying, I'm saving the best for last. I mean, it's going to be good now, and it is good. Even in times of maybe despair or discouragement or trouble, it gets a little bit tough. But with Jesus, even that is good. That life is good, and it's getting better. Even as we get older, as I'm finding out, you get aches and pains. You get things that you maybe wish you didn't have, health-wise. But life with Jesus is getting better, even as you get those aches and those pains. But it's really going to be better, and it's going to be the best when we see him face to face, and we spend eternity with him. And that's what the point the Lord's trying to make here is, just like with this wine, Jesus turned the water into wine, and they served it after all the other wine had been consumed. And see, the banquet master was saying, normally you do it the other way around. But that's not Jesus. Jesus doesn't do it the way that we think. And it's for our own good. Anybody have any comments or questions? I know we're missing John, and John digs into it deep. I tried to pull out some of the points. But anybody have any questions? Without Jack here, I guess we don't have any questions. All right, well, I think that maybe is enough for us to chew on for a little while. No other comments, no other questions? All right, before we have the refreshments, would anybody want to volunteer to pray for us? To close out?
Does anyone have any prayer requests?
Oh, good. Yeah, but Joseph had the one about getting a job. Let's see. I didn't bring my list from the other weeks.
Good health.
Good health. Good health.
Oh, yeah.
Safe travels to the Philippines and India.
Oh, yeah.
Mhm.
And y'all going about the same time? Y'all going about the same time in June?
I'll be the first to fly, June 1.
June 1? Oh, you're right after that, aren't they?
Is your whole family